Welcome. I'm Dr. Teresa J. Canada, the host of the Silk Stocking Sisters podcast. Welcome to another episode. I'm gonna do my best to try to, give you some more insights about what's happening or what my thoughts are about education. I mean, we're going through a whole bunch of stuff right now, as we know. But you know what? We just need to keep it real, and that's what I'm gonna do. Keep it real. The important thing I want to talk about right now, because education is key. Education is key. If you're not educated, you don't know anything, and it won't help you do anything moving forward. So it's important that you get some information, and knowledge is key. Think about it. They denied. I hope I'm sorry about the in and out of my scarf because it's just the way this camera's set up. When I get enough funds to have my own studio or be in a studio, it'll be different. Meantime, it is what it is. Okay, my book is in the background, and that's a good thing. So you know the name of my book and you see me. So that's the other good thing. But just let me talk about a topic today that I think is really relevant. Not that all my topics aren't, but this is an important topic because people think, oh, little kids, they're just too young to know about, they don't know that, or they don't understand. So, don't talk about the differences. We're all the same. No, we're not all the same. We're not all the same. And that's probably a good thing. All right. People want a homogeneous situation. No, we are all the same in certain respects, but in many respects, we're not. And we don't all look alike. We don't all sound alike. We don't all speak alike. We don't all dance alike. We don't do a lot of things alike. So I'm just saying, I wanted to share this information because you need to know what you need to know. Now, you take what you want and the rest of it, you leave it out. But I'm going to share as much as I can, as well as I can on this podcast. And hopefully more and more people be able to hear what I have to say, because I think it's important to share the knowledge. That's it. Okay. Because until they shut it down. But right now, I'm going to share as much as I can. So the topic today really relates to, a topic that, I'm an educator and a clinician. So I have several topics dealing with emotional as well as the educational perspective of children, especially young children, because I think it's significant. Children's understanding and recognition of racial identities, and people think, oh, kids don't know. But yes, children recognize racial identities at a very early age. It's not something they wait till later on when they get to elementary school or junior high school. Say, oh, who is that? Why do you look different? Oh, why am I looking different than what you look like? Children realize this early on, okay? And as educators, specifically educators, because that's the first presence in a large group, in a group of other different students, is when it really occurs most relatively at an early age for children when they go to school. Now, there was a study, article about in Drexel University, I'm shout out to Drexel University, the importance for educators to understand racial and ethnic identities. And this is people who are preparing to teach other young people, and they should have an understanding of this. So not only, according to Drexel, they say not only does creating a greater multicultural awareness and conclusion help students with different backgrounds and needs succeed, but it encourages acceptance and helps prepare students to thrive in an exponentially diverse world. Not just in the world, but just to this country. Just to this country. And just to the fact, if you live in New York City, even just in New York City. So I'm just saying that this is something that people think, oh, children are too young to know, or to get old, they don't talk about it. Yes, you need to speak about this early on because it's obvious. And that's the problem we're having, because people don't want us to recognize each other and what we each bring to the table. All right. Because we bring some stuff to the table. I'm telling you. All right. It's not just food. We bring things to the table. So like I said before, I keep it as real as I can on this podcast and tell people what they need to know. And, just listen, take what you want to take out of it, leave the rest alone. But still, it's very important that we discuss these issues because we are part of this world. And we need to be able to let people know who we are and what we bring. So as educators, I think it's significantly important that educators be aware of and understanding. I'm not saying they have to accept everything, but to understand there are different racial, ethnic identities, and they need to be aware of those and be able to understand what they are all about and how that impacts you as a teacher in a classroom, okay? Or whatever else you may be as an educator in other settings, or whatever format or whatever environment that you're in. But this is specifically, I'm talking about educators because that's the major place where young people gather in a classroom. Now, be it a public school, be it a charter school that's part of the public system, whether it's in a private school or a parochial school, quote unquote, it's important that teachers have this understanding, all right? And I think that we keep forgetting that children, parents will say, oh, my child doesn't, it's too young. But let me tell you a story. It's a real true story, because, I like to tell some stories. I recall when I used to travel quite a bit from graduate school, coming, from the airport, because I lived in New York City, so I would come back to LaGuardia Airport. And I don't know if it's still the same, because it's been a while. They've updated, they modified, they've modified LaGuardia quite a bit, so it's not the same setup in terms of layout. But my father was picking me up, and he had my oldest nephew with him. Shout out to my oldest nephew. So he was, I think, maybe about 4 years old, maybe he was about 4, because I know when he was 4, I taught him how to read. So I know he had to be at least 4 years old. So anyway, he accompanied my father to the airport to pick me up. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but it wasn't until after I arrived that my father shared with me a story what had taken place while he was waiting to pick me up. Because at that time, you could come into the actual airport area. You can come in, right now you can't come in. You can't come inside the area now. You have to wait outside someplace. But you could come in and meet somebody at the gate as they were exiting out of the gate, at the airport. That was then. That tells you a long time ago, okay? That's not now. They don't play that now. So basically that's what's happening. So, and it's interesting, when I was returning, there was like a slope, and there would be people who could go down to get their baggage, get the baggage claims, like going downstairs or going down a slope. And then there were people who were hanging above, who were like waiting, and you could, like, there's like an area you could stand up and you kind of look down and see people who were going underneath to go down and get the baggage claim. So anyway, that's where my father was waiting for me along with my nephew. And I think it must have been shortly thereafter. I think when he first saw me, he came and he couldn't even, I went downstairs to get my luggage, and he said he was a little embarrassed. Now, this is what my father said. Now, he grew up in the Deep South, and for him, he said he was embarrassed. He didn't say that he was embarrassed, but he was. I think he said he was uncomfortable. He was not. I'll just tell you how I describe it. He was uncomfortable because my nephew was very astute, who still is very astute. He's brilliant, and I believe he's brilliant. My bias, I'm sorry, but he's brilliant. And he was calling as people were exiting, coming into the area to go get their baggage. My father said that my nephew was saying, identify a person based upon the color of their skin. And he would say, Black man, white lady, black man. And he would just identify people by their skin color. And my father was very uncomfortable with that. And I could understand his discomfort, because that wasn't something you could say publicly, I guess, when he was growing up. Okay. But my nephew was very astute, and still is very astute. And he was knowledgeable, and he understood already at 4 years old the distinction between what people look like. And he was a very strong, which we were, he's very strong and positive about himself being a young Black male. He was not ashamed of being identified as a Black child, which oftentimes children are shunned not to acknowledge that, or don't say anything, just blend in. No, wasn't happening. So if this was occurring with somebody who I know, a relative of mine, who I knew, who I taught to read at 4 years old, he was cognizant of exactly what was going on. So they don't have to wait till they're 15 or 12 or 11 years old to recognize the distinction between what a person looks like. So if he's doing that, how else do other children who aren't my nephews or niece, who can acknowledge that they identify people by what the color of their skin is? And so basically the identity issue is very significant. It's extremely significant. So we need to do a better job in this society to letting people be. It's okay to be what you look like and not to be uncomfortable with it. But you guys think about, this is a different time, and we need to get real here. We need to get real, because that impacts the educational fortitude of a lot of these children who come into a classroom and feel because they are a certain skin complexion, they're not capable of learning, or they're not going to excel, or they're not going to be able to be successful in the school. I think that's a really bad precedent. And apparently we need to stop that kind of attitude, especially as educators. Now, I know I deal with it sometimes with, the emotional, because of my clinical background. When I work with some, sometimes I have to deal with that with some of my clients or slash patients. But I'm saying as educators, you yourself have to be cognizant of this and understand how this impacts the learning of young children and moving forward, not just the young children, but moving forward as well. So if it starts at an early age, you need to start working with them at an early age of understanding that with different children of all ethnic and backgrounds in your classrooms, period. And if you're an educator who's teaching educators, future educators, you should especially be acknowledge that as well, that they need to know what they need to know. So you need to be able to close that textbook if you have to, and you tell the real deal. Simple as that, okay? Because I'll tell you something. My understanding of people who were in the South, because I have educators in my family who were in the South, and sometimes you got to close that textbook, and even if you had one back in the day, and teach people the real deal. All right. That's the problem we're having now, because we want to forget, like, oh, we're all, no, you don't forget, okay? You don't forget. I experienced something as a fourth grader, and I'm telling you, fortunately for me, I had a good sense of who I was as a person, and that helped me to be able to deal with when I went to this school that really wasn't as welcoming as it should have been for me in the classroom. But I'm just saying to you that this is something we need to focus in on for our young people today and every day, that it's okay to be able to be who you are, okay? Because children recognize racial and identities at an early age, and we can't just keep putting things off, putting things out. Oh, well, this is the same. No, but let them understand that everybody is worthy, everybody. And that's the problem. We don't, this society, our society doesn't acknowledge that. And that's the biggest problem. And that may be why some people don't want other people to know about other people, okay? Because of their discomfort with that. So I'm just saying, this is what I'm saying on the podcast. Do what you have to do while you can. You educators who are teaching, those people who are preparing educators, keep it real. That's all I can tell you, keep it real. And do the best you can to make sure people understand that every child deserves the best education they can probably provide to them. So having said that, I'm going to pass this on and leave it from here. And we'll talk more about this and other topics in future episodes of the Social Discuses podcast. But for now, enjoy your day, enjoy your evening, enjoy your night, wherever you are around the city, around the state, around the country, around the world. Until the next time, we'll see you in another episode of Six Our Sisters podcast. Have a great day. Have a great night. Bye now.